students that they're really interested in solving.
The solar car is an opportunity to do something that most people don't usually get to do. Take a challenge to build a car, literally from scratch, and to go off on a limb and try something you've never done before.
So why is it we don't have shoes? See all these screws laying around? Someone wants to tetanus shot.
Sanding the molds was evil. It took a very long time. It's really hard to get it exactly right, especially for the fact that we were making a form to be able to be reusable. Normally forms aren't made to be used again and again and again.
Jonathan's officially on the mechanical team, but he also has the desire to learn every single field.
Jonathan was kind of an everything guy, and especially when nobody else wanted to do the job. I think finally, the coach's son a little bit. There was someone's got to do it. Who's going to do it?
He was the guy we always got to do the stupid stuff. I'm pretty sure he got run over once or twice while we were trying to get the car in and out of the trailer. And we refer to him as our designated red shirts. For anybody who doesn't know, in Star Trek, the red shirt is, there's Kirk and Spock, and then there's the red shirt.
Solar car makes you realize that the impossible isn't impossible. You won't find that people are telling you you can't do this or that won't work.
Solar car is probably perfect for students who are able to think big, because typically freshman who comes in really knows nothing how to do any of these tasks. And that's okay, because we have experts on the team and we have experts in the community that can teach us everything.
The people at Lancer are incredible and amazing. They were about teaching and not doing it for us, and I was really grateful for that.
So you have to put a release agent onto the frames, and then you have to start laying carbon fiber or fiberglass on top of that and get it to the perfect shape so it fits.
James Bennett is our Tony Stark. He can build almost anything if he has the right amount of resources. He also knows lots of people. He's very good at talking to professionals.
He's really good at mechanical stuff. He's like an actual leader there.
His enthusiasm is infectious. His mechanical ability is quite pronounced for someone of his age. He definitely took on a leadership role in Texas. Pretty much everybody on the team look at a problem and go, James, how do we fix this?
So first we had to put down a couple of layers of release agent, then fiberglass layers, and then a glue sheet, and then a carbon fiber sheet, and another fiberglass sheet, and put it all together, pack it down, vacuum bag it, and then stick it in the oven.
And I was definitely there from fiberglass. I hate fiberglass. I'm not even going to get started on that because it's the most annoying material to work with in the world.
So it was really fun to work with professionals, especially on a subject that none of us knew anything about. The carbon fiber was completely new to us. But now, I think if we had the supplies, at least a few of us could probably make something out of carbon fiber.
Like, we wouldn't be a team if it weren't for OSU. We wouldn't have ever gotten to Texas if it weren't for them. They were helping us all the way back and with our first car. And they just became more and more of a help as time went on. Kathy and High U taught us all kinds of things, not just about, building a car, but also about being a team and how to run a team and how to organize a team.
Working out of our garage was less than desirable. And we packed a whole bunch of stuff into a 3-car garage with two of the slots being taken up by the big forms.
I love
continue moving along.
The old workshop. It was so great to have a dedicated space for the car and to have so much room to work in. And it just felt like we'd become our own thing. We'd really become a team. We had a space, we had a workshop, and we were able to do things like open.
It's not like I played it 2 days ago on that computer. Can you get back to that open and just jump right in?
Really been able to do before.
This is discouraging. This reminds you of building a solar car, actually, because there's always stops and starts in the process here, and sometimes it flies and sometimes it doesn't. Well, okay, let's go ahead and recap. Yeah. The value in what we were trying to look at here is the process of what it's like for a team to go through with a major change in their car. This obviously was not their first car. They were moving ahead to make their own composite body. They had successes, they had failures, they got down here. The car itself didn't function as much as they would like it to, but they still were able to complete in their own mind their goal and their objective. And I think that one of the things that's very powerful to a solar car team is to be able to document what they're doing so that they can use it not only to say, here's who we are, but to be able to go back to the community and share with the community what's going on. It's powerful because your parents, your sponsors want to know. And more than anything else, your future sponsors want to know. Anybody who would have seen that entire program would have recognized the value of those kids going in, finding a place to work, taking on a project that was huge, which was going to a composite material and developing it and bringing it down here. It was an outstanding thing. You see the kids personally mature and develop. So I wanted to share that with you. And as soon as we can, I'm going to have copies made of it. And anybody who would like to have one, send me an email and I'll send you a copy of it. It's an outstanding program. We're starting today with a discussion of the actual putting together of a solar car team. I think that sometimes it's something that we need to continue to focus on. And Matt? Man, it's not being obvious. Yeah. Keep on going. This is
why I don't use technology in my classroom. I hate it.
Oh, let me go back here. Does this look familiar?
Yeah, that was a fun car.
This is Mark Westlake's vehicle for the 2010 race when we were going to Colorado. A remarkable device because they carried their array behind them, but also, well, why don't you tell about it?
Yeah.
I think that's...
That was kind of a unique project because we said from the very beginning we wanted to build a car that you could actually drive in real life. And so we started out with this urban concept idea where we said we're going to build a car and we're going to put a solar panel trailer for it that rides over the top of the car. So in our mind we had pictured this futuristic vision where the driver, the commuter, takes his solar car, drives this to work, unhooks the solar panel, leaves the solar panel at work, and then commutes back and forth to home. So it could be a plug-in electric when he got home. When he got to work, he wouldn't have to take energy from his workplace. He could just plug it into this mobile solar charging unit and then charge during the day, and then go home. And if he needed to, he could just put the panel back on the roof of his car and drive home. So it's kind of a fun project. That car would go about 60-some miles on just its batteries. So you could just drive it without any solar array at all. And then, of course, the solar array just plugged in and had all the lights and everything on the trailer and on the car itself. So it was kind of a fun. It was easy to get in and out of. It was comfortable driving position. So that was a.
Well, this is probably an appropriate time for us to say that when we get to 2015, we're going to have another class of vehicles within our program. It's going to be a smaller class. It's going to be under the Classic division. It's going to allow a team to build their own charging station, be able to take their car, drive up there, charge their car, and run it as an electric vehicle on the track. It's designed to provide a segue from people who are going from the old solar bicycle type of project into the solar car. They're not having to carry the array around with them, but they are still able to participate in this. So we think this is a nice way to sort of expand our program and create a sense of reality. I'm not sure if you are aware, but Ford announced just a couple of weeks ago that they have a solar car. And it is a prototype that's being tested for them by the Georgia Tech University this summer. Nice solar cells on top. Obviously, it won't drive the car. But the idea is that they go to a charging station, charge up, and then from that have enough charging there to drive 30 or 40 miles within the community, go back to their charging station. So what we are doing is, about the same time you see this on the road, we'll have our little car series within our program to do about the same thing. A charging station with an electric car.
When will this be implemented?
It'll be in 2015. We'll be putting out the rules on that right after this summer's race. One of the things that you need to think about when you're putting together your solar car team is team building. I used to always tell my students, you know, we're going to have some tough times ahead. We're going to have times when we're not going to be successful with what we're doing, and there's a chance that you may crater. You may not want to sit right there because I'm going to be sitting there spitting at you all morning.
That's okay.
Okay, all right. We've got a partnership here. Things go well when you have a solar car. Things don't go well. And I found that the only thing that ever holds people together is the bond between the students. So at the very beginning, we would have team building activities where you learn to rely upon each other. You have a good time. You go out and you do things so that when you go to Australia and you have to take a car and put it into a truck, that you've got a team that's willing to work together on that. You go off and you do things as a team, like we would go to McDonald Observatory all the time. Things so that the students would be able to enjoy being with each other. I'd hate to say go party with each other because it gives bad connotations, but be able to at least get along with each other. Anytime I ever found a group that they didn't get along, they generally were not able to handle the stresses of going through a solar car race. So how do you do this? How do you organize a team so that it tends to work? Our first team, I made the mistake of having 7 seniors be a part of this. That was the worst experience of my lifetime because after about 15 months of experience with these guys, they all graduated on me. How dare they all leave at the same time? So I had to start up again with a whole new team. At the beginning of a solar car team, or even after you've already built one car, one of the things you begin to realize is there going to be life after the first year of this project? And if there is, I need to start building within this program a mechanism that's going to allow the team to be able to survive and to be able to move forward based upon the students themselves. So after that first team, we developed a program in our high school to bring in both 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders, and used peer teaching as a technique in this. That was successful. Didn't realize that for the first year. I wish somebody had told me that first year, because after they all graduated, then I realized that we were starting off from zero. It was not a very nice thing to find out. When you do get together and you are hanging together as a team, then when you get to Australia and you find out that box is shifted on the boat, and that 60% of your solar array is totally destroyed, and all of the time and effort and money that you've raised to get over there is for nothing, at least you've got a team that can hang together at Ayers Rock and fight the flies and all that kind of thing. So let's look at some very basic things. Selecting the size of your solar car team. Bob, what was the size of your team?
We had 30 kids. The year we went to Australia, we had 30 kids. We took 10 in Australia.
And didn't your original team have about 60 in it?
And, you know, in various stages, that came through. Kids that started, graduated, and left, and other kids that came probably, yeah.
You had a really outstanding group of kids, and I think that they had to make that tough decision. Who actually gets to go? And I think you told me once that they decided who actually went to participate.
When we we put the car on a container ship and it left in September, and we hadn't raised the money for the kids to go, the airfare.
So if you have a large team, the problem is maybe not everybody's going to be able to participate when you're going away to Texas or to Australia to carry on an event. At the same time, what if you end up with a team that's 3 or 4 people? That may not be enough. We were getting ready to do a race out of Austin, and this team from Indiana, one of the drivers is walking across the tarmac. He falls, breaks out his front 2 teeth. That was their only driver. They didn't have anybody who could drive their car. They had people who, could give it a push and all that kind of thing. So as it turned out, the Colorado team's captain drove their car the entire race. So maybe 3 or 4 people are not enough to be able to do a solar car team. I think you've got to have a minimum of 6. We always give the impression from our rules that maybe 12 might be an appropriate size. That's enough to run the car, that's enough in case somebody gets sick, but it's also a fundable amount. It's what you can take with you on a race.
And it's 3 hotel rooms.
Yeah.
So that's the way I always think about it. Groups of 4.
You're right. We've had teams who, I remember last year, a team bought like 8 hotel rooms the entire race. That's a lot of money. So I always try to think about, well, what size groups should you take it? So you need to think about the size of your teams. Does your team understand the commitment to this? Chris Bartley would always be the one talking about this right now, and she had a very interesting technique. She had a contract that she would sign between the kids, the students, and the family so that they would understand what was involved. So when it comes to the summer, is a student going to be there to race the car? Sometimes when you get into this, you get all the energy and enthusiasm, and everybody gets going into this, and they then begin to realize this is going to take some work. Lyle, did you ever have that kind of a issue?
Yes. It's time or two, where kids just didn't show up. And we've had that both years. It's our second year. We've had some kids who signed up who we don't see very much.
So what I recommend is a firm understanding if you're a new team about what you're going to do, what your goals are, how you're going to achieve it, and it'll work that way. The key to it is getting everybody involved in the fundraising. Get everybody involved in investing into this. The only time we've ever had a solar car team completely fail was when a team from San Antonio got involved in it, and the school paid for everything. The students did nothing. They did no fundraising, and when it came time for the summer event, not one student was willing to be there. And the rationale that was presented was It wasn't their car, it was the school's car, and they didn't see any responsibility to be there. If everybody has to get out and actually invest in something, spending time, shaking hands, selling hot dogs, whatever it takes, then you're going to be willing to do something. There's a sense of practicality to it. I had a champagne team one year, and they had no concept of money, the value of money. They wanted to put on some great shock absorbers, mountain bike shock absorbers on their car, and the car was light enough it would have worked great, but each one was $500. So you wanted to buy at least 6, 4 for the 4 wheels and 2 for backups. So you're talking about a huge chunk of change for some shock absorbers. So I got the idea, why don't we go down and raise funds at the state fair? Many teams will do this, sell a solar cell on their solar array and use that as a way to help fund their program. $10 for solar cells, and you go around and ask people to donate $10. So here I had 15 students running around the state fair trying to sell solar cells for only $10. So the first day of the state fair, they come back, they've made $120. Next day, they make $100. By the time we finish the fair, $1,500. Now, thinking about the price of $500 per shock absorber, they're wanting to buy 6 of them. They became really aware of the cost of being able to buy the top-end equipment with what their funds they were able to use. So what I'm saying is, if you can get students involved in your program, actually interested and a part of the fundraising, you're going to find people who are practical about how much you're going to spend, and they have a greater appreciation for it. And since they've been involved in this, they're going to show up at the time of the race. I never went to a contract, but there are people who swear by this. I think the real value is getting yourself as a teacher, your students, and the parents together in a meeting early in your program and sitting down and explaining to everybody what it's all about. So you've got the support from the families, you've got support from the administration. Do you have a definite time and a place to work? One of the things we did get out of the film that we saw from the Oregon team was they were so proud that they had a place to work. We never did at the very beginning. We had nothing. I think I was telling you yesterday, I was able to con the administration into using some little bit of sidewalk space, and while they were gone one weekend, we tore it up. The kids learned how to pour concrete. We built a little shed. When everybody arrived on Monday, we had a little solar shed. You know, all I could do was ask for forgiveness, Bob.
You told me a story when we met you in Phoenix about working at a hotel with some cardboard.
Yes.
That's a great story.
Oh.
They tore up the rug.
Our first car. Trying to build this togetherness with the team, we went out to McDonald Observatory. We were in this hotel at a place there, a rather nice hotel. And I got together everybody in the room, and we had bought some pieces of wood, and we were going to construct some kind of concept idea from these pieces of wood as to what we wanted to build. So the students were, we forgot a saw. So students had knives on them. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, they're there, and we're cutting whatever, and they're doing different things. And there was a knock at the door, and it was the room service people, and they were the cleaning service. They wanted to vacuum. So the maid came in there, and she started vacuuming, and these huge pieces of carpet had come up. Because what the students had done, they had cut the wood, but in the process, they cut these designs out on the floor. So our first expense in solar, first one, was $600 to replace the carpet in my room in Fort Davis. So a lot of togetherness on this. It was good stuff. You need a place to work, though. Our first group worked in the hallway outside of my physics classroom. It was both good and bad. It let people in the school know what we were doing, but also they knew what we were doing. And it was sort of interesting. So you might think about that too. If you have a definite place, you've got some place that you can sort of call your home. Will the team be there for the race? They need to know when it's going to be. They need to know the experiences. And sometimes it's nice to know this. In September, I found families plan vacations a long time ahead. You want to be able to tell your families that Don't plan a family vacation. You don't want a kid coming in the night of registration and missing the time to be able to register and to be a driver. That's not a good thing. You want everybody to be there at your time of registration. Yes, sir.
Hold that trick. Your little intern there. He did the first time he was up here. He came in late.
Is that the person I talked to?
We had to get him ready for his first thing.
I convinced you to let me register early.
As I said, be there at the time of registration. And you were doing what next summer? Okay, no. I forgot that. And then what happens when your first team graduates? Are you going to be prepared to have another team follow? I've had some teachers look at me and say, do you really think we're going to do this more than 1 year? Yes, yes. Because invariably, after you've built your first car, many of the people who have been involved in this, many of the students who are involved in it, are already talking about, well, here's what we're going to do next year. Here's how we're going to advance this. And not only that, but you want to get the other people to come back and provide their feedback. Have you had any discussions with your team yesterday about what's going to happen?
Yep.
I just saw their new concept. If you haven't had a chance, Rob, wave your hand there, because teachers, you ought to come take a look at what Rob's proposing for their next car. It's an incredible thing. This would be your third car.
This will be our third car, but it's our first one. We're building the chassis version from scratch. The last 2 years we've used a Legend Racer chassis that we've gotten donated for free. And we've modified it and took tons of metal off of it and done well with it. This time we're doing our first time to build one up, and we're actually basing it on old belly tank Lakesters, 1940s style racing ones from the Salt Flats in Utah. And
Wow.
our own modifications and ways to do it. So that's what we're looking at. You guys know those kind of cars. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's what we're playing with there this year. But again, he's right, that it gets to where you get stuck in it. In fact, our administration now has started, for the first time, they're planning a solar car class based on this, because they've liked what we've done so much. They actually are wanting to make a class out of it that we're going to be doing as well, on top of our other stuff, as well as our club, that's after school.
I do recommend this approach, because if you can do this one, it makes administration feel good, because they know that there's accountability here. It's not like a club that's going to float away. Of course, it puts you under the school administration in regards to the funding and all that kind of thing, but that's not
I
bad.
haven't gotten to tell you yet, we just got the school to fund us for the tune of $30,000. That's not counting our other sponsors, but they just came back and said, yeah, we're going to fully fund. It was a surprise. They came back and said, we're going to fully fund your car, the transportation, the gas, everything. They said, we love what you're doing so much. This, from the first year we did it, we barely raised $6,000 and had to get that car at a scrap.
But that was your sense of pride. You remember
I love that car.
I love this. People were saying, how much does it cost to build a solar car? I said, talk to Rob. Because if you can do it for $6,000, it makes you realize that if you can get the community involved, then you can do something with that price. Okay.
But it is really nice to have money. I got to admit that.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah. Solves a lot of problems. One of the things that the people were talking about yesterday, Lee and Keith and Mark were all saying, is that read the rules. You've got to do this. You've got to do it with the students. And they have to be involved enough to be able to buy into the responsibility. One of the neat things yesterday was there was our team from DeSoto. It was a student who corralled the teacher to say, are we going to be in line with the rules here? And they had different provisions set out there. Get the students to know the rules enough. Who was talking about... it was Joel Pitts was talking about putting the rules on the nightstand and reading them. You wake up in the middle of the night and reading that kind of thing. You really need to know this. If you get to the race, to scrutineering, and you have something that doesn't comply, then it puts you in a very bad situation. The biggest is, can I fix it within the time frame I've got? And you, in effect, have a night to be able to make a revision on this. You don't want to put your students in that kind of thing. You want to have read the rules enough so that you feel comfortable with it. Not only just you, but everybody within the team. One of the things that we soon evolved into was SubTeams. My first team, I had 7 students, and one person would have a screwdriver, and the other 6 would be standing there watching him. We weren't getting very much done. So we began to realize that it was going to be neat if we could specialize in certain areas. Yes, everybody needs to know sort of what's going on, but wouldn't it be great to have 3 people as an electrical group? People that you could take off and train and totally know everything about the electrical aspect of the car. People, another group set up as mechanical, who would be involved with the drivetrain and the suspension and the steering and the alignment on the car. Would it be nice to have a group that was involved in aerodynamics, the outer covering of the car, who'd spend time looking at this and having that their specialty? These kind of things give you a chance to have 3, maybe 4 activities going on at the same time. And as productivity, one of the things you're trying to teach your students is, how can I make the best use of the time that we've got here? And I've also found it keeps people out of other people's hair. Any times that I had a problem on the team, it was because somebody was trying to mess in somebody else's business. So if you have an electrical over here doing something, a mechanical over here, and the body of the car over here, then I've got small enough groups that they're not antagonizing each other. Yeah, they're going to come back and tell each other what they should have done, but that's okay. They're not directly being involved in it. Read the rules, take the time, make sure that your team is able to handle the questions. One of the things that somebody mentioned yesterday that I call your attention to, within the web page, it has in there a section of forms. One of those forms is an actual scrutineering packet that you'll get a copy of at the time of scrutineering. You're going to see every question in there that's going to be asked you. You're going to see everything that has to be checked off. That's another important thing to read as you're getting ready to build your car, so that you know what's going to be expected of you. It asks you, can your students tell us what the efficiency is on your solar cells, be able to prove it and show what the cost is. Many times when that kind of question is asked, a student will run to the teacher and say, tell me how to answer this question. If you know the question is going to be raised at scrutineering, then you as a student, you as a teacher, can prepare your team to be able to answer that kind of thing. Please look at the scrutineering section along with the rules. I think the key to this is, no matter whenever you start your program, is to establish some goals for yourself. And I've got a nice little timeline here that we have for starting off in September, but whenever you start it, set up something like this. I ended up at the beginning of years in my early teams having a banner on the side of the wall in the classroom, setting out what we were planning to do. Did we follow that? No. My goodness, you can never handle things. How many times as a solar team do you find that you say, oh, we're going to be through with our construction in March, we're going to be able to test this car come April and June, we're going to have a nice vacation in the summer and be ready to go. That never happens most of the time. I have seen solar car teams maybe testing their car 2 days before they put it in the trailer to come here. Now, that's not what's good, but it's sometimes what happens. No matter what, you don't quit. You always come on and you eventually try to make yourself a success in this project. But this is a way to approach the program. This is a way to sell it for sponsorship, because you walk into somebody's office and you say, we have a plan, here's our idea. Rob shows a picture of what they're getting ready to construct. Then you say, over this time frame here, we're going to be building that car, we're going to be racing it. Now, if I were a prospective sponsor, I'd be saying to myself, these guys know what's going on. What I've found is that if you go into a corporate office, if you go into a foundation office, to any group, they have 100 people every month who ask them for money. You've got to distinguish yourself from all those other people. And the way that you do this is by preparation and letting them know that you know what you want to do, that you have a dream, you have a plan, and you know how you're going to achieve it. Now, I don't deny it's nice to have had a track record. Your second year you do this, then you can say, hey, this is what we did last year. But even if you've never built the car, if you have an idea about what you're going to do with drawings, maybe a schematic showing what your proposed electrical diagram might look like, that's huge for selling things. So look at this great idealistic plan here. You plan to design in September. Early October, you develop promotional materials, maybe a little booklet, maybe a little pamphlet, maybe some pictures, maybe PowerPoint presentation, and you start your team developing their ability to be able to talk about the project. You do fundraising in October. You buy materials in November. You start building in December through March. Once you start building, you realize all these great plans don't work, and you're going to have to change them. I remember our first axle on our first car, we didn't realize there was a process known as hardening. And we just bought some regular material from Home Depot and went out and started driving this thing, and the car started bowing because it wasn't able to handle the stress on this kind of thing. We found out that by hardening the steel, it would. So you sometimes have to re-engineer. May should be for testing, out on the road, driving it. Not only just the car, but also the people who are going to be on a road race like this summer, your lead car, your chase vehicles, so that you're able to proceed. Test the car, then you race in July, and what makes a good science project is when you get together afterwards and you say, this is what I did right, this is what I did wrong, this is what I want to do in the future. The importance of communications. During a race, whether or not you're out at the speedway or whether you're on the road, you want to have somebody on your team who might be the specialist for speaking. And that the value of this is extreme. I know that, for instance, yesterday when I asked Christian to stand up and say something, he was articulate and he spoke really well. Last year at the awards banquet, he was a very strong spokesman for their team. You want to find somebody on your team who can speak for you. That really helps. That doesn't mean everybody else shouldn't be speakable, but it means that you can have somebody who might interject things.
Yeah, can I say something about that? I had a student when we did our cross-country race who was just the absolute worst worker. Didn't like to be dirty, didn't like to go in there and move things or clean, didn't want to work on things. When you get to this cross-country race, it turns out he likes people. Now, I personally don't like people, and so it was perfect because every time somebody would come over to talk to us about our car, he would intercept this person and just rave about what great things this program has done for him. This is the greatest kid ever, my favorite kid now, because I didn't have to actually talk to people along the way, and you have enough other things to do. So you're right, you have to find that kid, that one student who's a great face for your group.
And then when you're on a cross-country race, like the 2 days of summer, whenever you're on the side of the road with a flat tire or you're sitting there, you're kicking the car because it won't do something, you want to have somebody who's there to intercept the people who are going to be coming up to you. Invariably, when you're at the worst time, that's when the whole community is going to come up and want to talk to you about something. That's where your student puts his body between them and the car and does exactly what you said, does the talking for you. And that gives you as a teacher a chance to focus on what's going on with the car, and you don't have to be at the meeting and greeting the person who admires what you're doing, wants to say nice things. The process of speaking about the car and communications was important to us. We always had a requirement, since it was part of a class, is that you had to be able to speak about it. And we had actual scripts. The students started writing scripts. They had certain things that we would say. We would want to say something about who we were, how we got the idea, what our plans were, how we're going to raise the money, what our experience had been, and what we were going to do. That makes about 5 different speeches. The students had that. They had to learn the speeches. And I found more than anything, what we were doing was creating a vocabulary, a language that students could talk so that adults would think that they knew what they were talking about. And that's huge. We were presenting a program and a bunch of TV cameras, and I put a student up there, and the TV person said, well, tell us about your program. He said, okay. And that was it. Somebody said, well, what are you learning about things? And he said, stuff. And that was it. So do you think that TV interview did us any good? No, it wasn't. But I found out if students had a script, they could find something in their mind about the solar program that they were doing that they could talk about. Sound intelligent. And even if they were dealing with mechanical stuff and somebody said, what are you learning? They had something they could say. If they were dealing with electrical, there was something you could say. We've already talked about the importance of being a part of fundraising. Insurance, extremely important. You know that in order to be able to participate, drivers have to have a driver's license and the vehicle must have liability insurance. If you are with an ISD, many times the ISD will include your solar car within their umbrella package. And that works well. Sometimes that doesn't work. If you're a private school or you're in some ISDs that don't do that, then after many years, we've been able to locate an insurer here in the Dallas area who's willing to work with an individual team to help provide insurance on this. The nature of the event determines the price of the insurance, but at least you can get insurance. And you have to have insurance in order to be able to drive. You have to submit that to me when you submit your final report June 1st. And I use that to be able to go get you a Texas driver's tag to put on your car as an experimental vehicle. So it's crucial to start thinking about where I'm going to get my insurance.
I can't even tell you what a difference this made for us. For us as a private school, tried to get insurance for our solar car. Our insurance company, Catholic Mutual, said, no way, there's no way we will ever insure this. We called in favors, no way could we get it insured at all. And then Dr. Marks found this company, and they were super helpful. We didn't mind paying the premium. It saved the day for us.
Well, thank you for that.
That
We get nothing from it. We are no way associated with it. We don't get a 10%, whatever, nothing, whatever. I'm just delighted to be able to say we've got a group of people that'll work with us on it.
That was great.
Rob?
Yeah, the fun part though, if you do have ours is through our school district, but that was the funniest phone call the first time we called up and talked to our business office. Yeah, we need to put our race car on the insurance. It took us about a week to convince them. We actually had a race car, but it was okay, it was safe, and that way we need to put it on the insurance. The lady on the other end was very disbelieving that we were going to ever try this with the school district insurance policy.
I understand. Well, the first thing they're going to ask you for is for a VIN number. And one of the things that we were able to do when we started the program back in '93, we got a law passed to create an experimental vehicle group in Texas. And the state allows me to come in and assign a VIN number to your team. So when I go in there and I've got 20 license tags to pick up, I say, okay, the Ben Barber team is VIN number 1 in Texas. And, you know, the Liberty Christian team is VIN number 2. And we go from there. But they've got to see the liability insurance that goes along with this. Don't forget that aspect. Many times people wait pretty late before they start thinking about that. Wasn't that a fun race this summer? I can't minimize the importance of testing your car. Please don't come for scrutineering and not have your drivers actually drive the car, all of them. If you're going to get them licensed to drive, make sure that they've driven your car. Saves a lot of plain old embarrassment and things when they try to move their car between a slalom. Safety. There was a lot of talk about safety, but I wanted to summarize a few things here. Take the time to build your car according to the rules with an adequate crush zone and roll bar. We learned this during one of our first races in '97. There was one of our cars from Indiana was actually driving, and an oncoming truck was forcing them into a guardrail. They were able to impact the guardrail, and there was no injury to the driver. The reason why there was no injury was because they followed the rules of building a safe car. They had a roll cage that was there to protect the driver. There was enough room to be able to have a crush zone so that parts could give in before it impacted the driver. That's why we're so specific about this. We've actually had people who built a solar car that had some protection from the front, but from the side, you could almost drive an 18-wheeler through the car and have it touch none of the vital members of the car. Just no protection at all from the side. Read the rules on building a safe car. That's crucial for you and for your responsibility for your kid. Start at the very beginning, adopting good protocols for working with a battery box and your wiring. You want to make sure that your students understand that if you're involved in working in a battery box, it's got to be with one hand. One hand behind your back, and you're using one hand. That way, if they shock themselves, it's not going to go through the central core of their body and cause a real problem. You want to also develop a way that they understand when it's safe to cut a wire that's already in a car and when not to. One of the few minor injuries we ever had was I had a student being very cavalier about what they were doing and decided that, oh, here we've got a nice wire and it's covered with this plastic snaking stuff. Well, I'm going to take this little box out here and do something else. So he takes some clippers and he clips through the wire, not realizing that it was a hot wire. Well, it produced some interesting experiences, but you don't want to have to deal with that. So develop a protocol so that students know how to deal with things. Use tools that are going to be characteristically safe. If you're going to use a wrench, make sure the other end of the wrench has a rubber coating on it so that you have less of a chance of getting sparked along that line. When you work around the car, at the very beginning, develop a sense of this car has a potential for shocking the bejeebies out of me. And that you've got to show respect. One of our cars that we sent to Australia, really neat, we had a nice composite top of the car and the solar cells are on top of it. We'd actually installed it ourselves. We didn't realize that every time that we fixed the solar cells, resoldered certain things when some of those little solders broke, that we were going through the insulation and actually the charge was going into the nice composite, which was conductive. So if you had wet hands and you went to pick up your solar array, you see the kids going, whoo, 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 that kind of stuff. It was fun. I mean, it was interesting and all that kind of thing, but you didn't want that to really happen. So respect for the car and understanding the implications of it. Each team has to have an active safety officer. And I found over the years that we had teams, 20 years with solar teams, that the person who was a safety officer was generally the least efficient person on the team. That's not really the right way to approach this. Your safety officer should be somebody who the team respects and admires and can look at things and anticipate. Your safety officer is the first person when you're on a cross country that's out of your car. The safety officer is running out back behind your last vehicle with an orange flag, starting to set up cones and create a zone of protection so that when everything's set up, you have students who can get out of the chase cars, get to the car, either change a wheel or check for electronics, doing whatever needs to be done. Your safety officer's responsible for this. At the one of the first meetings we have at the race this summer, we'll be having a little class. How do you properly use an orange safety flag? Are you able to communicate with this? Can you do it, or just somebody on the team says, get out there with a flag, and you're out there doing all kinds of stuff and not giving any communication to your drivers? You want somebody there looking so that if somebody's working on the car and they say, I've done such a great job, and they back up, they don't put their butt into traffic. One of the incidents that happened to a university during the American Solar Challenge was they had, and this is not so recent, they had a kid back out into traffic and get hit. This was a responsibility of the safety officer who's watching oncoming traffic and watching your team so he can say, hey, you can't get out that far. You're endangering yourself. Because when you finally got the wheel replaced or you finally readjusted your alignment, you're so excited that you forget, I'm here and traffic is moving right behind me. Important thing to think about. Use warning flags and cones. You can't have enough, and we'll check that to make sure that your chase vehicles have these kind of things. Experience driving the car in parking lots first, and then taking it out on the street where you know it's going to be sort of protected. A nice little neighborhood area close to the school that doesn't have a lot of traffic moving through that neighborhood. Do that kind of thing so you can counter turns, obstacles that you didn't expect. They're going to jump out at you. And practice what happens when you have a breakdown or loading your car from the road, flat tires, and alignment on the car. When you get to the race, we actually take you out on the speedway and you pretend that you've had a breakdown. And we bring out your trailer and you've got to demonstrate to us that you're capable of loading your car on the trailer efficiently and quickly. We used to have a contest. Who could do it quickest, fastest, and safest? So I can't minimize that kind of opportunity there. I put this picture in it because I just like it. Something really neat there. And then again, after the event's over with, take the time to meet with your students and evaluate what you did. What did they like? What didn't they like? Yeah, you may have some people who are graduating, but you may have some people that are still going to be there. Let them decide, what did we want to do? What was significant? Eric, when you finished the race last year, did you just say, that's it? Or did you start planning for the next year?
Yeah, isn't that funny? That's true.
Yeah. And the best thing is to, as a teacher, formalize that into a post-evaluation. That's good science. And that's just a good picture. Okay. Can we take a 5-minute break? And we're going to be then turning the program over to Mark Westlake, who's got a demonstration talking about aerodynamics.